some examples so that you can kind of see what fits for you. All right, so you have the IRA, you have the Roth, you said that you're self-employed, right? So this is the great thing about being an entrepreneur. The same way that your W-2 job would set up everything for you, you can set that up for your own company, okay? So you can set up your own, that's why I have this step here. This is something for self-employed individuals, as well as this 401k. It doesn't always come from your job. You can also set up your own solo 401k, okay? And it can be traditional or it can be Roth. All right, now the third one that I want to make is the brokerage or joint account, okay? I say joint because if you are married, you should entertain a joint account, okay? So this is the account for today that allows you to reduce your taxes today. This is the one that allows you to reduce your taxes tomorrow, okay? And this is an ongoing taxable account, okay? So in this account, I basically call it like a savings account on steroids, all right? Because what happens is you can take capital gains or capital losses in this account every year. So let me give you an example. Robinhood in 2021, the beginning of 2021, it was all over the news that Robinhood users were all up in arms. You know what I'm talking about? They got their 1099s, okay? They got their 1099Bs. What is a 1099B? A 1099B is the tax form that the brokerage company or Kroger is going to give to you that says this is how much money you made last year or lost last year in this account. Now, if you make a lot of money in that account, you then have to pay capital gains tax. Remember, you're in a partnership. So in this partnership, you're paying capital gains tax every year or potentially losses, right? So if you lose money in that account, you're able to deduct it from your taxes, but it's not a lot. So it's not really a fair partnership there. But anyways, the brokerage account matters, okay? The brokerage account matters. Those people were mad because they didn't know that they were going to have that crazy tax bill, all right? When my mom lost her $1.4 million, halfway through it being gone, she found out that she owed a six-figure tax bill, okay? She wasn't supposed to owe that six-figure tax bill. So she actually lost an additional 6 figures more than she was getting, than she even inherited, right? So with the brokerage account, you guys be careful if you do have a Robinhood account or you're opening an investment account and you're not exactly sure what's going on. You want to make sure that this isn't the account that you have, or if it is, that you're just aware that you will have to pay capital gains taxes on your winnings, okay? It doesn't work like that for these two account types. These are considered to be retirement accounts, right? So you're not supposed to touch this money until you're about 60 years old, okay? So the brokerage account is the third account type that you need. Now you guys are probably wondering, like, why do I need all three of these different account types? Well, remember when we talked about the 5 stages of money? Your wealth is going to be built one step at a time, right? Like most of us don't come into $1.4 million, right? Most of us are going to have to build our wealth one step at a time. Small change adds up, right? So over time, you need to look to fill these different account types, okay? You need to look to fill these different account types. And
just curious, what's the tax rate on capital gains?
Okay, we can talk about it. I got you. Okay, so but the highest tier is 20%. Right. Capital gains tax ranges from 0 to 20%. Right. So you need all three of these account types. Why? I worked with a couple, and I need to make sure I'm on time. I worked with a couple who. So actually it was Consumer Reports reached out to me. They said, hey, we have this couple and we need you to look at their financial situation. And for this article, you guys can look it up. We need you to look at their situation and give us some advice. What should they do? Okay. Couple, 65 years old. They had saved into their 401ks. They had a little over $1 million. They had some pension money. They had some Social Security money. And so they could pretty much live out the rest of their life on the money that they had coming in, right? So they were like, you know, can you just comment on their situation? And I was like, well, had they met Jacqueline at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday at Georgia State, then Jacqueline could have told them that they needed to fill all three of these account types. Why? Because when they got to be 65, and they needed to pull money from their 401ks to pay their bills and survive, what happened when they only had this box right here?
Tax withdrawal.
Yep. All the money they had got taxed. So they needed about $100,000 a year. So now that pushed them up into higher tax brackets than they even were in when they were working. So had they had some Roth money, then we could have pulled a little bit from the 401k and we could have pulled some from the Roth. So we wouldn't have been creating this big tax burden for them, right? We could have even pulled from here potentially, had they had all three of these. So that makes a difference. Also, you guys are entrepreneurs, right? You're not shooting for the average ordinary life. And in order for you, I don't even call it work, I don't even call it retirement anymore, right? I call it work optional. In order for you to make work optional a choice, which means that you get to wake up and decide, am I going to work today or not? You get to wake up and decide, am I going to quit this job today or not? In order for you to get to that point, you're going to have some money that you can access to live on. All right. And since these two account types, they technically don't want you to pull from these accounts before you're about 60 years old, then you're going to need somewhere else to get some money from. So you're going to have to fill up this account type, because that's where you would pull your money from before you're the age of 60, right? At this point, you guys aren't getting Social Security until 67. So, I don't know how that's going to change or what that's going to look like in the future. So let's just take responsibility for our own financial futures, all right? And so we would need to fill all three of these account types, okay? So that's kind of a hybrid of personal finance and some of your business finance, because like I said, anything that a W-2 job does for you, you can do for yourself, okay? Now, to your point of what do you recommend people do? Should they just do Roth at first? Should they do traditional? Blah, blah, blah. I think this story might help you out. Anybody know who this guy is?
Peter Thiel.
Yep, Peter Thiel. So who's Peter Thiel?
He's a famous investor. He was one of the founders of PayPal and also an early investor in Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why does that matter to the rest of us? It kind of doesn't, but the thing I think that matters is the story, okay? The story of what he did, because what he did was use the financial system to his advantage, and the story is pretty sexy. So I told you it doesn't get sexier than what I said earlier. I lied. This is pretty sexy, okay? I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about this man took $2,000 and turned it into $5 billion tax-free. Remember, you enter into that partnership with them, okay? But if you understand how the partnership works, you can use the partnership to your advantage. So how did he do that? Peter took $2,000 and he used that to buy into PayPal. That's where his PayPal shares were. He bought them inside of a Roth account type number 2. What happens in account type number 2? Who's that? You? In the mask? I heard the muffled. It's not taxed out withdrawal. That means that $2,000 that he put in there, he had already paid taxes on that. So that $5 billion, he doesn't have to pay taxes on that. How's that possible? How's that? Is that not mind blowing to y'all? Is that not? That's really sexy. Like that's it right there. Okay. He took $2,000, bought the PayPal shares inside of the Roth account. When those shares became worth billions of dollars, he then was able to pull that money from that account. Now, remember, it's a retirement account. So because, I don't know, he doesn't look 60 yet to me, but so he would have to pay a penalty for that. But I will take that penalty every day over having to pay, whatever amount in taxes, which would be much higher, right? Or he can just wait until he's 60 and he can access that money and have no penalties. Okay? So when I'm telling you guys, I'm not giving you the advice per se of how much should I do in my traditional and how much should I do in my Roth, right? It depends. It really depends on what you're trying to do. Okay? But I will tell you that that is a crazy benefit, to be able to buy something inside of the Roth that you know is going to grow exponentially and still have that protection from that partnership in a negative way. right? That's really powerful, okay? So let's keep going on, all right? I know you guys know this because you're in the entrepreneurship space, but I still wanted to talk about it. Let's talk about the new economy, okay? Because in the old economy, the realistic, like if we get down to like, what is it, the nuts and bolts, we get down to it, we lived in an economy where you had to ask for permission to be successful. Like you had to go to college for sure to get a job at a place where somebody owned a building that you could go into, that you could work. You had to ask for permission to be successful, right? You don't have to do that anymore. And you know how I know that that's real? When I was at Kennesaw, we didn't even have an entrepreneurship space. Like there was no entrepreneurship college and conversations. It was coming at the end of it. It was coming, but it still wasn't everywhere. Why? Because we lived very predominantly in a space where if you didn't have money or come from money or build some connections, then you were not really able to be successful, right? You used to have to go to a factory job, right? Like that was the big thing. It was like if you had a job at a factory, like you were making money. You had to ask for permission to be successful. This new economy, you don't have to ask for permission to be successful, right? You're sitting here in here and people are teaching you how to be entrepreneurs because you don't need anybody else's permission anymore. The only permission that you need is your own permission. You have to give yourself the internal permission to prosper, okay? Some people don't do that, all right? Say, if you think that this is for you, then say prosper, like prosper. Prosper. If prosperity is for you, then you just have to give yourself the internal permission to prosper, right? And I know that it's gonna be difficult on your journey, but in this new economy, you really don't need anybody else. You don't. Okay, now let's talk more about your business pocket. Your business pocket, which is second. I'm good to about 1:30, right? Yes. Okay. All right, so your business pocket is your second pocket, right? You got to keep these two separate. So I want to talk really quickly about just some high level numbers that you guys really need to know. And, you know, these are just big for your business, okay? So revenue. Now, we all know what revenue is. That's the money that comes into the business. Now, when I'm thinking of revenue and I'm thinking about new entrepreneurs, I'm thinking about a lot of you who haven't given yourself the internal permission to prosper yet. And by that, I mean, you haven't given yourself the opportunity to make the most money. Sometimes you're thinking really, really small when you need to be thinking a little bit bigger about the revenue that you can make, right? So I want you to think about what is one thing that I can do today that I can create one time and get paid on forever? What is something I can do now that I can create one time and get paid on forever? Okay. For a lot of you, that'll be in the digital space. Okay. For some of you, it'll be creating content, right? Some of you may be writing a book or creating that song or whatever it is, but what's something that you can create one time and get paid on forever? Right? Some of you guys are thinking, you're thinking kind of like, you know, 5, maybe 6 figures. And I want you to think 7 figures when I talk revenue. Okay. So I'm not saying that you need to go out and make 7 figures tomorrow. I'm saying that you need to give yourself the permission to prosper, the permission to get to that space. The next thing you'll want to know is your expenses, right? So there is a system. We talked earlier about personal capital, which in personal capital, you can make the delineation in there between your personal expenses and your business expenses. You can use that for that, or you can use Wave Accounting, WAVE, free accounting software for your business so that you can keep track of what's coming in and what's going out, okay? Knowing the expenses of your business is huge because it all adds up. It all adds up. It's like $45 to Google, $20 to Zoom. So it all adds up, right? So just knowing where your money is going and your expenses in your business, what it's going to cost to get started, okay? And again, you don't need permission from anybody else. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, I need a partner, or I need to go raise all this capital. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't. You just need to know what your expenses are going to cost you. Now, some of you need to be going and getting a job and using your job to fund your business, right? Again, I said I lived on 50 or 20%. I say 50, 20% of what I made. I use that money to reinvest. I reinvested in myself by form of education, conferences, whatever it took, paying mentors, paying coaches, right? Reinvesting into myself, because you guys really are your biggest asset. You know that, right? That's why you paid all this money to go to school, because you know you're your biggest asset. So understanding your expenses, using that money properly. And then what is your profit? So again, thinking back to revenue and thinking on a larger scale, profit-wise, what do your profits look like? What is your revenue minus your expenses? What is your actual profit going to be in your business, okay? Also, what's your salary? How are you going to pay yourself? These are just things to think about when you're thinking about your business, because you may be thinking like, oh, I want to make 6 figures, but the plan for your business only makes 6 figures. And then because of your expenses, you only take home $30,000 a year, right? So think through your salary, okay? And think through that partnership with the IRS, because that's going to eat into a lot of what you guys have going on, okay? Do I need an LLC? I feel like this has been, there's like a joke, it's like LLC Twitter. Have y'all been on LLC Twitter? Yeah, so LLC Twitter, they will like convince you that you have to have an LLC, okay? And I'm gonna tell you there's 4 different types of business structures, all right? You have sole proprietorships, okay? And that's where a lot of you should start, is just with the sole proprietorship, meaning that you are your business essentially, okay? You have sole proprietorships, you have corporations, you have partnerships, and you have S corps, okay? So thinking to yourself, do you need an LLC? No, a lot of you guys are using that as a barrier to getting started, saying, oh, I need an LLC. You're using that as a barrier to get started, because you can start as a sole proprietorship without an LLC and go about your business and do what you need to do and get the LLC later. You can very much do that. But the reason why I want to talk to you about why you may need a business, an LLC, or one of these other kinds of businesses is because in order for you to get recognized by a bank or a financial institution, you're going to actually need legal papers. You're going to actually need the LLC, right? So you can do everything as a sole proprietor. You can write off whatever you need to write off on your taxes. You don't have to have an LLC to do that. But it can be helpful when you want to go to that next step, okay? So again, business structures, these are kind of your common that you're going to see, right? So as you file, you may file as a limited liability corporation, an S Corp, or a large C Corp, okay? Ooh, we got a little typo here. All right, so for those who are deciding, okay, I have my business structure, I have my papers from my Secretary of State, I have my trademark, I have my investment account, right? And you're like, okay, what actual bank accounts does my business need? Because as a personal individual, I know I need my checking account and I need my savings account and I need my investment accounts. But as a business, what accounts do I need? Okay, so you're gonna need 5 different bank accounts, okay? 5 different bank accounts that's going to help you run your business as effectively as possible. Because that's what we're going for. You can certainly, and I've seen it time and time again, people will run a whole 7-figure business as a sole proprietor, and it works for a little bit until it doesn't work, okay? So for those who are trying to get to that next level of structuring, this is what you need. You need that first account, which is your income account, okay? This is where all the sales, the Cash Apps, the Stripes, the Shopify, this is where all those payments go. They go into this income account, okay? This is pretty much the only thing that goes in here. The only thing that goes in here is income, and the only thing that leaves is expenses, okay? So the second account type is your expense account, okay? So you don't pay for anything for your business out of your income account. You only pay for things for your business out of your expense account or the other account types that we'll talk about, okay? And let me put them up here so you can see. So the third account type that you need is your payroll account. All right, so for those who are starting a business and you're learning how to outsource and you don't have a bunch of employees and things yet, you can look at using a source called Gusto, Gusto, for you to be able to pay contractors that may work for you or employees that may work for you. You can use Gusto, okay? So this is the third account type that you'll need, which is your payroll account. The fourth account that you need is, remember that partnership with the IRS tax account? Yeah, that one hurts, but still got to do it. And then the last account type is your profit account. Okay, remember the revenue minus the expenses, get to the profit account. So these are the 5 account types that you need. Nothing comes out of the income account but transactions that go to one of these other accounts. Ideally, money only flows from the income account to the expense account. Okay, then it can flow from the expense account to wherever else it needs to go, but it only goes from the income account to the expense account. Anybody know why that matters?
So you can write it on.
Close, but no. Remember, you can write off things as a sole proprietor. You don't need an LLC.
So the numbers don't get all messed up.
So your numbers don't get all messed up. Clean books, that's a good point. There's another point that I'm going for though. The point that I'm going for is, my recommendation is to start a business with your own money, with your W-2 money, with whatever money you've saved. That's my recommendation. One, because you need to build a financial discipline, right? Like I tell people, there's only 2 reasons to have a budget, okay? And the first reason is financial discipline, right? You need to download Personal Capital and you need to be checking it every other day. When I was sitting in these chairs, I was making no money and I was checking that account almost every other day. Okay, 1, you need to be checking your accounts to make sure there's no fraud on there. But 2, you need to be making sure that you're building that financial discipline. Okay, and the second reason why you have a budget is so that you can understand how much money that you need to invest. All right, so when you're starting your business, I think you need to start with your own money. Now, when you want to grow your business and you want to scale, this is when you can start getting money from investors, from banks, for, personal loans. This is where you start taking your idea and you grow it and you stretch it, okay? Now, I'm saying that this matters, why this goes here and it's very clean, because when you go to people and you say, hey, give me money. Hey, bank, I want capital to grow my business. They say, oh, okay, well, what's your business doing? They want to see that it's very clean. All the money comes in here. I got deposits coming in here every day. But I only have money coming out of here once a week, once a month. And it goes to my expense account. They like that. That's very clean. They're more likely to give you more money. Okay? They want everything you have to be very clean. A lot of people were crying when COVID happened and PPP loans were a thing. Y'all remember that? Raise your hand. You remember that? PPP loans were a thing. It was popping, right? People were upset because they couldn't get access to the loans. Why couldn't they get access to the loans? The money was everywhere. It was a mess. They didn't keep clean books. They refused to hire a bookkeeper. They refused to get help with it. So then when a crisis hit, they were not prepared. Okay, so we're going to be good entrepreneurs. We're going to be prepared for when something happens. Okay, so this looks very clean and makes it very likely that you're going to be able to get capital. Okay. All right, so these are the 5 account types that you needed. I want to wrap up and then we'll do questions. Make sure we have time. Yeah, okay, so I want to kind of wrap up and then we'll do questions. So I want you guys to keep in mind that where you're at right now, literally, the raw materials don't look like the finished product, right? It was so hard for me to sit here and I almost gave up several times on what I was trying to do. It was very hard for me to sit here. I kept comparing myself to people who had like 20 years of experience doing what I was trying to do, right? So I don't want any of the information that I gave you guys today to be overwhelming to the point where you want to quit or retract what you're doing, right? You've got to take all of these different pieces. You've got to take, this part of the board. You got to take the wheel. You got to take the whiteboard, right? You got to take all those pieces and you got to figure out how they fit together, right? How they will create that thing for you at the end of the day, because the raw materials, they don't look like the finished product, right? So is that the right number? I think it is. So my team set up a couple things for you guys today. So if you're wanting to have those numbers about the IRS partnership, you can text numbers to, that is the right number, 404-537-4379. So that is the number that you guys can text and it will send you that, okay? You can also feel free to catch me on all social medias. Let me see. You can catch me on all social medias. This QR code will take you directly there, but it's just Jacqueline Plans on everything. This is my assistant's email. So if y'all have questions or there's anything that you need, you can also reach out to her there. So I want to thank you guys for your time. Let you know that I'm rooting for you. I believe in you. I know that it's possible for you. And, I'm wishing you guys all the best.